Russians entrenched themselves in this island, which they never had even a physical connection to. They build the bridge, they're trying to do whatever they're trying to do, but then they occupied the more than 25% of our territory. We have priorities, and the priority is to stop this war and find a way how we can actually get our nation back the sovereignty of it. Give it up or not give it. We're not even asking. This is occupied territory. We're just not recognizing this occupation.
Get it done. Those are the words of a rather impatient Donald Trump to Ukraine. He criticised Volodymyr Zelensky for not wanting to surrender territory to the invading Russian army. In the Oval Office, Donald Trump said the Russian end of the deal had been somewhat easier.
I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky, and I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky so far. It's been harder, but that's okay. It's all right. But I think we have a deal with both. I hope they do it because I'm looking to save. And, you know, we spend a lot of money, but this is about a lot of humanity. This is the worst. I get the pictures, the satellite pictures. I've never seen anything like it. Of the fields after some of these battles. It's horrible that it's going for nothing. We would have never had this problem. You would have never had that war if I were president, I guarantee you that. And for 4 years, you didn't have it.
As these discussions continue, Russian drones and missiles are still landing on civilians. 9 people have been killed in overnight strikes in Kyiv. Vadym Prystaiko is a former Ukrainian ambassador to Nato and London. We spoke to him often on this programme in the early stages of the war, and he's very kindly joining us now. Vadym, good morning to you.
Good morning.
How depressed are you when you hear the words and see the social media posts of Donald Trump?
Quite depressed, you're right, especially when you take into account that 70 people today in Kyiv city were wounded and 9 very unfortunately died. And Russians are pushing, knowing of this obsession of the American administration with 100 days to achieve something, to strike the deal. And we know that sooner we sign this deal, the worse this deal will be.
Do you think that's what it is? This is the 100-day pressure. He wants to get a deal done, and that's what's driving him.
I believe that's what's driving. They're missing the point, though, and they can took the example from your nation, which has been bombarded through the world, just trying to ban the civilians to create the atmosphere of hate towards their own government, which never happened in your case and is not happening now. But they're trying.
Do you have to accept, though, in all of this, what the reality is that Crimea is gone? Crimea is not coming back to Ukraine.
We've been living in this part of the globe for quite a while, and Crimea was in Russian hands for 300 years. We'll see about it. What we see as reality right now, that we're very unfortunately losing our biggest ally. Somebody we expected, hoped that would come to help. But we still have the rest of Europe and sometimes in the world. We believe that we have to work with what we have and try to achieve the realistic. And the realistic now is to shut down the war as hot stage of it and try to rebuild our nation, being able to withstand next attack of Russians, and they will come.
But does that mean, do you think, in the short term, conceding Crimea? Because, as you say, Crimea has been Russian, and therefore, is it something that is an absolute red line for you, for Zelensky, for the Ukrainian people?
If you're talking about fighting for it for the end of eternity, no, we understand that Russians entrenched themselves in this island, which they never had even a physical connection to. They build the bridge, they're trying to do whatever they're trying to do, but then they occupied the more than 25% of our territory. We have priorities, and the priority is to stop this war and find a way how we can actually get our nation back the sovereignty of it. Give it up or not give it. We're not even asking. This is occupied territory. We're just not recognizing this occupation.
So it may be actually that there's something in Trump's point here, however crassly he's made it, that the answer is just to say Crimea is what Crimea is. It doesn't need to be a feature of this. It doesn't mean you concede it to Russia. It doesn't mean anything other than you just leave it as it currently is for the sake of stopping this war.
That's exactly what we agreed upon, and that was exactly what the Pompeo declaration, when Mike was State Secretary, what they were saying, that we as the West, we are not recognizing the territorial grabs, although we have to understand that at this moment we are not fighting with the biggest nuclear nation in the world. We'll try some other way. But again, the official position of all Ukrainians, not just President Zelensky, that we are not recognizing that something was grabbed like Crimea or the rest of this eastern parts of Ukraine.
Yeah. Would it be better for Ukraine, Vadym, if Zelensky found a way of stepping down? Trump clearly doesn't like him. Trump clearly regards Ukraine through the prism of his dislike of Zelensky. Is Zelensky now the opposite of an asset? Is he now a problem for Ukraine? When it comes, not saying rightly or wrongly, but it's in terms of how the Americans judge him.
You might be right that in American eyes, the easier to resolve it all is just to get rid of Zelensky, and that was probably talked behind the closed door somewhere in Moscow with Witkov or whoever is talking about that. But the strange reality is that by the elephant steps in the porcelain shop, they actually raising the popularity of Zelensky. If we have elections today, we just can't have them. But if we do, Zelensky will be re-elected. So what Americans will do then?
But should he step down? I take that point. He's a popular man, and he would win an election if he could have an election. But maybe could he say I'm somehow in the way of the Americans here? I should step down, or would that be the wrong way of responding to their behaviour?
You know, strangely enough, it's never been discussed, even in the expert circles, that Zelensky is saying that, you know, I'm tired, as Yeltsin said, and brought Putin to power. We're in the middle of a fight, and there is no way of saying that's just because of Zelensky. It's not about of Zelensky. When Zelensky came, he promised Ukrainians to stop the war in 10 days, because even he didn't realize that's much deeper than personalities. Yes, Putin is, as you know, sharpening this message, trying to show that that's Zelensky on the top of this problem, but it's not Zelensky who is fighting all these years long. It's Ukrainians.
Yeah.
So it's sure it won't help if they believe that it will resolve anything.
Yeah, and he doesn't want to do it. And you're saying they're not even talking about doing it, which is itself interesting. Do you think it's fair to say Trump has been captured by Moscow?
He's definitely captured by himself and this obsession of 100 days or striking the deal, the master of the deals. And this is what's you know, driving him in this. He believes that something can be done that easily. But there is a history, long history of relations. We're fighting with them for centuries and centuries and centuries. And this will be another Trump trying to come to this part of the globe and saying, guys, I understand how it works. That's my plan. You know, we have to find something better. Our idea was to become one body with you, the NATO, the EU with our neighbors. But this, you see, it's not working so far.
And actually, have you got to abandon the hope of joining NATO? That seems to be an American red line as well, or a Russian red line that America is happy to adopt. Do you have to concede that you're not going to join NATO?
You see, you're rightly pointing that we have red lines from the Russian side, the American side. There is nothing Russians have to do to stop this war. Americans are missing the point. We are not an aggressor. We were trying to hide by the, you know, beyond this umbrella, if you wish, of NATO, and we were refused. So what do we do next? We were exposed. We are one nation between two blocks, the Tashkent Pact and the NATO. Our natural move is to become a part of bigger alliance. Now we have a strong army, 1 million people fighting. And this, I believe, the asset for the rest of the Europe.
Yeah, but that appears to be slightly being pushed back, at least for now. Just finally, if Trump did recognise Crimea, would that make a difference? Because, as you say, it is what it is, but no one has ever recognised Crimea as Russian. What if Trump decides to do that as part of this process? What happens?
Actually, it's a good question, because Russians already recognize that this is part. And you remember, on top of it, 4 more Ukrainian regions were brought into constitution. So I don't understand how in Russian calculations it will help them to stop war. Putin has to tell the Russians that, remember Crimea, remember the 4 regions I brought into? So there is difference. Crimea is one thing, and these 4 pieces in our own Russian constitution is somehow different. I don't see how he is doing it.
And just finally, where does this end? Does this end with a deal being given to Ukraine that's unacceptable and Zelensky refusing it? Is this are we a week or 2 weeks away from a deal that's a Russian-US deal being presented to Ukraine and Ukraine refusing it?
You know, unlike Iran, which is obviously trying to wait American administration, knowing, feeling this frenzy, trying to get something by the 100th day of the administration, we believe that we're still friends, and we don't have to do it. We still can sit around the table and try to bring some normality in our relations back. So we hope that by seeing our strong position, that we are not joking, this is our survival, our existence, they might find a way that, no, the Ukraine is low-hanging fruit, but not that low.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point. Will they see you as low-hanging fruit, or will they see something that they're not worth persisting with? Is the risk, I suppose. Vadym, good to speak to you as ever. Really interesting to get your perspective. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's Vadym Prystaiko, there, former Ukrainian ambassador to NATO in London. Most interesting thing I thought, Kate, was that they're willing to let it seems to me that Ukrainians are willing to let Crimea just stand. That's what he said, wasn't it? It's not a priority for us to say Crimea should come back.
Well, he said if we're talking about fighting over Crimea for eternity, then no. I think what's really interesting about listening to somebody with the depth of knowledge and the understanding of the roots of this conflict is, as he said, there'll always be another Trump.
Yeah.
There'll be another person like Trump who'll come along at some point and say, look, I understand what you're doing. Here's the deal. But the truth of the matter is that whatever Trump agrees won't solve the ingrained issue.
No.
The thing that will solve it, and Vadym Prystaiko pointed it out there, is Ukraine is one nation caught between two blocks, he said. We're between the EU and we're between Russia, essentially. If you won't allow us to join NATO or the European Union quickly and in an effective way, this conflict will not go away.
Yeah.
And that's the much bigger problem and question for America and the EU and the UK now. How far are we willing to go to bring Ukraine into the existing bloc and to provide it with security, which is provided by NATO to other nations which are in Ukraine's position? And if the answer to that is we're not, then whatever Trump decides will not end this conflict.
It's such a good point there. And the question is, are we willing to do all of that without America? So are we willing to sort of have a NATO without America, effectively, which might be the EU, it might be something else? Is there a non-American world where we say we're going to pull Ukraine into our bloc so Ukraine is bigger than Russia, effectively?
Yeah. He also said Zelensky is now more popular as a result of all of the attempts to remove him. So that's an interesting point to reflect on too.